There is a claim circulating on the internet about a secret Roman method for growing perfect carrots, and today we are going to examine whether it has any real basis. What I found after weeks of research completely changed my perspective, and it will probably change yours too. The story goes that the Romans grew giant, perfect carrots using trenches 30 to 40 centimeters deep, placing seeds at the bottom with sand for drainage, and progressively covering them. Long, sweet, unbranched roots, supposedly the result of this system used for centuries in poor soils. It sounds exactly like what you need to stop struggling with misshapen carrots and disappointing harvests. The problem with this story is significant, and no one is talking about it. I spent weeks investigating this claim, reviewing the original Roman agricultural text, searching through archaeological studies, and consulting genomic research published in scientific journals. By the end of this video, you will not only know the truth about this supposed Roman method, but you will also have in your hands real scientifically verified techniques that do produce exceptional carrots. The Romans did not cultivate carrots, at least not the carrots we know today. And this is not my personal opinion or a conspiracy theory. In 2023, researchers from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and NC State published a genomic study in Nature Plants that traced the origin of the domesticated carrot, and their conclusions were conclusive. Domestication occurred between the 9th and 10th centuries AD in territories of Afghanistan and Iran. Think about this for a moment. 476 was the year the Western Roman Empire fell. The domesticated carrot appeared 800 to 900 years after Rome ceased to exist. 800 years. Claiming that the Romans had a secret method for growing carrots is like saying that the Vikings had special techniques for growing tomatoes, when the Vikings disappeared before tomatoes arrived in Europe from America. The Romans knew the wild carrot, Daucus carota, a thin, fibrous, and bitter root that they used as medicine, not as food. The first cultivated carrots that appeared in Persia centuries later were purple and yellow. The orange carrot you buy at the supermarket did not exist until the Renaissance, when Dutch horticulturists developed the long orange variety in the 17th century. When someone talks to you about the Roman method for carrots, they describe a technique for a crop that did not exist at that time. It is an anachronism, like talking about Julius Caesar's favorite iPhone. I didn't settle for the dates. I went directly to the Roman texts. The Romans were obsessive documenters, and we have complete agricultural treatises from that era. Pliny the Elder wrote his Natural History, a massive encyclopedia, while Columella wrote De Re Rustica, probably the most detailed agricultural manual of antiquity. Cato the Elder and Varro also left writings on agriculture. I reviewed each of these texts. Pliny mentions the parsnip and recommends digging the soil to a considerable depth, and this phrase is probably what generated all the confusion. The context makes it clear that he is describing general soil preparation, not a trench system, and here comes the important part. The Romans used the word parsnip interchangeably for carrots and parsnips, without distinguishing between the two plants. The context suggests that Pliny was talking about parsnips. Columella briefly mentions wild parsnip and a variety that the Greeks called staphyllinos, but he does not provide detailed cultivation instructions and definitely does not mention trenches of 30 to 40 centimeters. Cato and Varro do not even mention carrots. They focus on grains, olives, vines, and legumes, the crops that really mattered in Rome. The Romans did use trenches in their agriculture, that's true, but they used them to drain wet lands, to plant vineyards, and to cultivate asparagus. No text documents trenches for root vegetables. Perhaps the method existed, but they didn't write it down. Practical knowledge that passed from farmer to farmer. It's a reasonable possibility, and that's why I went to archaeology. Pompeii offers a unique window into the Roman world because the city was preserved under volcanic ash in the year 79 AD. Archaeologists have studied every corner, including gardens and food remains. Archaeobotanical studies in Pompeii, Herculaneum, and the Villa of Torre Annunziata identified 24 species of charred plants: wheat, millet, barley, broad beans, lentils, chickpeas, onions, garlic, figs, olives, dates, walnuts, grapes, pears, and apples. Carrots do not appear on that list. Researcher Wilhelmina Jashemski documented 646 Pompeian gardens. None showed evidence of cultivated carrots. Not a single one of the 646. The cultivated carrot does not appear because it did not exist. And you cannot find evidence of something that had not yet been invented. Now comes the part that really matters for your garden. There is a fundamental confusion in this story of the Roman method. A confusion between two completely different concepts: the depth of seed planting and the depth of soil preparation. Carrot seeds should be planted at half a centimeter, a maximum of 1 centimeter deep, according to UC Davis, Cornell, Johnny's Seeds, the Royal Horticultural Society, and Utah State University. All agricultural extension sources agree on this. Carrot seeds are tiny, and burying them 30 centimeters deep would kill them because they would never germinate. Soil preparation is something completely different. To obtain long and straight carrots, the soil must be loosened to 30 or 45 centimeters, allowing the root to develop without obstacles. That is not trench planting. It is land conditioning, which any informed gardener does. A study published on ResearchGate specifically examined the impact of tillage depth on carrots, and tilling at 20 centimeters produced the best results. Maximum root length of almost 18 centimeters, diameter of 4 centimeters, weight of 99 grams per plant. Working the soil deeply helps, but that is modern agronomic knowledge backed by studies, not a lost Roman method. There is a place where depths of 30-40 centimeters or more are used to grow carrots, and it has nothing to do with the Romans. In the United Kingdom, there is a tradition of giant vegetable competitions organized by the National Vegetable Society, where growers compete to produce the longest carrots in the world. These growers use extreme techniques, barrels up to 1.5 meters deep, special mixtures of sand and compost, and the Japanese variety, Manpukuji, which is 400 years old and can reach 1.5 meters in length. Gerald Treweek, the British national champion, documents his technique: 40 liters of peat, 10 liters of silver sand, and 10 liters of sterilized loam. This is for competitions, not practical farming or home horticulture, but an extreme hobby for world records. Charles Ledgerwood, master gardener from San Diego, discovered something that changes everything. The shape and length of the mature carrot is determined when the root is the size of a sewing thread, which occurs in the first 21 days of growth, 3 weeks. What you do in those 3 weeks defines everything. The bifurcation has specific causes: physical obstructions such as stones, old roots, or clods, compacted soil that prevents vertical development, excess nitrogen according to a study by Monteruzaman from 2013, transplanting that damages the root apex, soil temperature above 28 degrees in the first 7 days, and water saturation for more than 12 hours in the first week. The use of sand to improve drainage is indeed a real practice, recommended by Utah State Extension and the Royal Horticultural Society for clay soils, with a ratio of 1 part coarse sand, 1 part compost, and 1 part sifted soil. That part of the statement has a real basis, but it does not have Roman origins. Prepare the soil by loosening it to 30 or 45 centimeters and removing stones and clods. In clay soil, incorporate mature compost at 25 or 30% of the volume. Sow at half a centimeter deep and cover with fine soil or vermiculite. Keep the surface moist until germination, which takes 2 to 3 weeks, and then thin to 5 or 8 centimeters between plants. Water evenly, avoid high nitrogen fertilizers, and use mature compost, never fresh manure. For difficult soils, there are adapted varieties. Chantenay tolerates clay, Danvers 126 adapts to almost everything. Paris Market works in shallow soils, and Oxheart withstands heavy soils. The Roman trench method for carrots has no historical basis because the Romans did not cultivate domesticated carrots. No classical text describes this technique, and there is no archaeological evidence. The next time you hear about a lost ancestral method that promises miraculous results, ask the question that no one asks. What is the primary source? If they cannot cite a specific ancient text, the claim is likely a modern invention. Deep soil preparation works and is backed by real science, but it doesn't need to disguise itself as ancient mystery to be valuable. True knowledge does not require mythology. It only requires evidence.